Well, why don't we look at try to identify the heads then at this point, since they're 7 heads and 10 horns and not potentially 28 and 40, we can do this. And if we remember that we need to take into consideration the book of Daniel when interpreting the book of Revelation, and the Greeks have 4 heads, then they should have 4 heads also in Revelation chapter 17. Another thing that is brought out, especially between the books of Daniel and Revelation, is this close cooperation between the Greeks and the Romans. Like, for instance, in Daniel chapter 7, you have this beast, and he has and he has 7 heads, 10 horns, and then there's iron there, but he has brass nails. If you remember from Daniel chapter 2, gold, silver, brass represents the Greeks. And so you have this close cooperation between the Greeks and the Romans. In Daniel chapter 8, when the notable horn is broken and 4 come up in its place, the little horn comes up out of one of them, and that is actually the Western Greeks. There were only 3 substantial kingdoms. Like when Alexander conquered, the kingdoms moved from 5 to 4, and then to 3 for many, many, many years. And this proved to be a problem for many historians in saying, hey, the Bible says 4 horns, but there's only been 3 substantial kingdoms that have really arisen. And it wasn't until the work of Edwin de Kock who brought to light that, wait a minute, Alexander basically went toward the east. There were some very powerful, influential Greeks that existed in the west, like in Italy. When I was studying philosophy and systematic theology, I would always wonder why these guys were coming from Italy, like Pythagoras and Parmenides. Now, why aren't they called Italian philosophers if they're in Italy? That's because there was a group of people known as the Western Greeks that were there, and this was the cradle of Western philosophy and Western civilization, and they impacted the papacy in a very powerful way. The Western Greeks and the ideas of Greek philosophy are the basic backbone and structure of the papacy, which is why when you even go to Revelation 13, it's comparable to a leopard.
I was going to just say that.
Yeah, it's comparable to a leopard. It only has the feet of a bear and the mouth of a lion, but the thing looks like a leopard, but yet it's Rome and it's the papacy. Why does it described as a leopard? That's because Greece and the ideas of Greece would exercise a dominant, powerful influence. And so when we get to the identification of the 7 heads and the 10 horns, then we should be incorporating the 4 heads that come from Greece. And the interpretation that has been suggested by de Kock here on page 81 of his book is the following. So keeping in mind that Greece has 4 heads, and also keeping in mind the close cooperation between Greeks and Romans, this is what he suggests. So the first head, meaning Babylon, the second, Medo-Persia, the second, the Antigonids, the third, the Antigonids, made up of Macedonia and Greece, and then the Seleucids, Syria, Asia Minor, and Mesopotamia, then Egypt, the Ptolemies, and of course in Daniel chapter 11 you have the king of the north and the king of the south. The Ptolemies are the king of the south, and the Seleucids are the king of the north. And then later, the 6th one is the pagan Greco-Roman Empire, which would be the one that is writing in John's day.
Exactly.
And then you have the papacy that would come, and then the scarlet-colored beast, which is the devil and Satan. He is the 8th, and he is of the 7.
Right.
So he is the one that has been behind all the rest of these kingdoms, and he is of the 7, and then he is going into perdition. And so that is a suggested interpretation based on some of these hermeneutical principles.